Hey guys, Hailey Lain aka Key Black here, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Cuff. Kind of continuing today along the same vein as previously, where I'm kind of revisiting some older anime that I watched growing up or that I kind of missed out on and caught up on later. Today I wanted to talk about Detective Conan, which was a series I was super into in middle school and high school. This was like right after I finished reading the Sherlock Holmes books for the first time, so I was like super into that kind of genre. I loved all the references to Conan Doyle's work, and it is of course at the same time as the peak of my weeaboo phase. So the fact that it's a manga about a detective stories, oh man. And I have to pause here for a second because previously I was talking about Zatch Bell, Ronin Warriors, you know, these old stories that I still really, really adore. Detective Conan ended up disappointing me at a certain point, but I still have a huge soft spot for it. Part of it is because the series has been going on for 30 plus years and it hasn't gone really anywhere to my knowledge. And the other half of that is the fact that, I mean, it's kind of hard to look past once you realize they deliberately shrank down the main character to a child. It's like, that's an interesting choice, But I still really enjoyed what of the series I read and watched when I did read and watch it. I've fallen out of it long since. This is one of the few series that I actually read as a manga before I got into it as an anime, and what's funny about that to me is that when I did finally start watching the anime and I started watching the English dub out of curiosity, it's very, very different. I got gobsmacked with this memory from my childhood when I woke up. I woke up one morning way too early for Saturday morning cartoons as a kid, and I caught the tail end of Adult Swim, including the closing bumper for an episode of what was called Case Closed, which is the English dub of Detective Conan. And it said something like, "Next Conan's hint, a bloody window." Scared the bejesus out of me as a child. Again, I was a very sheltered kid, too scared to even look into horror stuff, let alone like, you know, murder mystery things. But when I was watching the anime and I finally saw that bumper in the context of the episode, I was like, oh my god, that's what it was. If you guys aren't familiar with the basic gist of Detective Conan, it's kind of a murder mystery of the week series where the main character is named Kudo Shinichi. One day he was on an amusement park date with his high school friend Ran Mori. Tragedy strikes, there's a murder there, he's the one who solves it, but during the investigation he discovers that there's a couple of other shady characters who seem to be involved in some illicit dealing. He gets a bit too cocky and tracks them down alone, but they catch him, they try to kill him using this experimental drug from their syndicate, which is supposed to be, you know, able to kill somebody without a trace. And so they leave him to die behind one of the attractions in the amusement park, but he wakes up a couple of hours later to find that instead of his body burning away, it's burned down to the size of a child. And so he takes on the alias of Edogawa Conan, elementary schooler, to try and discover what the organization, the syndicate's secret is, and bring them down while still undercover without letting them know that their drug didn't work. It gets a little bit weird because there is still that kind of love romantic tension between Shinichi and Ran, but Ran doesn't realize that this child that she is now taking care of over the course of the series is actually her high school sweetheart Shinichi in disguise. But it does lead to a lot of really fun situations, especially early on in the series, where Ran gets really close to discovering Shinichi's real identity. And that sort of thing is of course one of my favorite tropes in stories. It's part of the reason why I loved so much the Death Tea reveal of the other Yugi in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like, the secret's out, the jig's up, what are you gonna do? But because even though there is a larger overarching storyline to Detective Conan, it is a murder mystery of the week kind of status quo series. Conan always manages to weasel out of being discovered at the last second. Or at least specifically by Ran, because everybody else is fair game. I don't think it's a coincidence that one of my favorite characters in this series is Hattori Heiji, who's actually the first character who discovers Conan's secret identity as Shinichi. Heiji is another one of those high school detective types who actually considers himself Shinichi's rival before he even meets Shinichi. And so when he finally encounters Conan, he's like, wait a second, this child is talking a lot like that other detective I know about. Part of the fun from that point on is that Heiji has a habit of kind of blurting out Conan's secret without really thinking about it, and then he has to backtrack or pretend he said something different. Pretty much all of my favorite parts in this series, though, had to do with either Shinichi's secret coming out or the organization getting some more information revealed on them. Bonus points if those happened at the same time, like when Haibara Ai shows up, she turns out to be the scientist from within the organization who developed the drug, and it's like, oh my god, are we getting some serious progression here? It's also the reason why I loved the Raven Chase Chaser movie so much back when that came out. God, I think that might have been like the last or maybe the second to last of the Detective Conan movies I watched before kind of falling out of the series. I have no idea where the plot is at this point. I don't know if we actually got some more information on the Syndicate, if we got any further in that kind of plot progression. It's been a while since I kind of poked my head back in, and I've been meaning to do so lately just to see where things are. But even though I haven't checked on like the current status of the series in a long time, I still come back to the music pretty frequently, because like not only do I have just fond memories of the show and the manga, but the music was full of bangers. It has one of the best theme songs in anime, in my opinion. So when Detective Conan does finally end, I'm absolutely going to be rocking up blasting Kimi ga Ireba. Going, alright, what's the finale, guys? But I think that's a good place to cap it off for this episode, guys. Thanks so much for listening and for watching, and I will see you in the next Off the Cuff. Thanks again.